Ladies and gentlemen, my guest at this time is the Vincent Kennedy McMahon of the ITK, the In The Kliq. He's the heart and soul of 107.7 The Bone, the radio station. Baby Huey, how's it going, buddy?
Dude, what's going on? Thank you for having me.
Absolutely. I've interviewed some of the biggest names, the Kelly Kellys and the Chris Van Vliets and the TJPs. I'm like, Baby Huey, he needs to be on this.
Absolutely. Well, thank you. I feel very honored that I'm now on that long list you have of all the amazing interviews you have done. So thank you once again for having me a part of this.
Absolutely. You're now in the Bulletcast Interview Hall of Fame. Not to mention, you're the current champion of my show.
I was going to say, there's my title right behind you.
There it is.
Thank you for keeping it nice and warm for me.
Absolutely. This Sunday night, though, I'm taking it back.
Dude, I mean, I'm already trying to think ahead for like predictions. Like, you got me thinking now. Like, ever since you let me be involved in the whole Bulletcast championship scene and making predictions, now every pay-per-view I take very seriously as far as, all right, like, I really got to think about these matches because, my title's on the line now.
Yeah, I mean, but it's fun. It's fun. It gives the pay-per-views a
Absolutely. Oh yeah, totally. You know how like people have like fantasy football, all that stuff. I don't really do all that other stuff. When it comes to predictions in pro wrestling, it has my full attention.
Absolutely, 100%, man. So let's just dive like right into it. What inspired you to get involved with radio and broadcast journalism? I mean, is it something you wanted to do as a child?
Yeah.
Were you just going to college? It was like, I'll try this.
Oh wow. First off, it's just kind of weird. Like I said, that I'm being interviewed. Like I'm so used to being the one asking all the questions, so it's kind of really weird for me to like sit here and like think about myself because like I like to think I'm kind of very humble type of person. So it's like kind of weird for me to open up about myself and talk about things I've done. Hopefully, people find it interesting. But yeah, growing up, I mean, part of why I got into radio is this guy behind me. So for people watching the Bulletcast video on your YouTube page, subscribe by the way. So in the video we're in our home office. I finally got my home office set up, and don't mind my brother Tommy sleeping laying down on the couch. Right there he is, he's waving. But growing up, my brother and I, listen, we're 80s kids / 90s kids. So growing up, the radio was a big part of our life. You think about it, like, so I just turned 37 the other day. So think about it, like for us growing up, we didn't have like the internet. Here I am. I'm gonna sound like an old guy now, but growing up, I didn't have, we didn't have like the internet and all these different things that at the control of your hand. You can have you can listen and watch and do anything on your phone in a split second. Growing up, all we had was the TV, the radio, magazines, MTV. So like growing up, like the radio played a big part of my life and I was a big fan of it. And that was our source for a good portion of like entertainment, music, news, all that stuff. So growing up, my brother and I, we're always listening to the radio. Whenever we were in the car, we would just listen to the radio. Going to and from school, coming home, we had the home stereo system set up, and we listened to the radio on our downtime. Before we had like CDs and whatnot, CD players, Walkmans. Yeah, the radio was a big part of it. So growing up, I always thought it was so cool being like a radio personality. You're the voice, the narrator in between the music. What separates the radio from like a jukebox is the personalities, the voices that can connect with people. And growing up, like I had a variety of DJs that I would listen for on different radio stations, and I love all their different unique personalities. And to me it sounds so cool. It was like the next best thing to being a rock star. You're the voice of the people, the music. And like I like to think of like a radio personality, a DJ. You're the middle person between a band and their fans. So you're the middle person. You're the one that represents the fans, get to ask questions to the artist, and then at the same time, ask questions from these artists, get answers from them that helps connect them even more to their fans. So I love just the synergy of it all. So just all that stuff. Just growing up, like I said, the radio was such a big part of it, and I love that atmosphere, and I wanted to be a part of it.
Absolutely, man. I mean, for me growing up, my mom would always have on the radio, and like I'd always hear like Nikki Thomas and Big Daddy Victor Saragossa. I think that's how you pronounce it. So
Yeah.
who are some of those people for you that are just like embraced in your youth when you're listening to the radio?
Absolutely. So growing up, in the late '80s, my brother and I, when our parents would take us, or our mom would take us to school, we would listen to Alex Bennett in the mornings. And Alex Bennett on Live 105 back in the day, his show was a local Bay Area morning show in San Francisco, and it was such a fun atmosphere. He would always say, "You're live on Live 105," and he has this big voice, but he's also very comedic. He have a variety of just comedians and guests come in. It just sounds so much fun. It's like, oh my god, you're sitting in a studio having fun conversations. You're showing off your personalities. You're interviewing people. You're presenting news. Like all the different kind of responsibilities you can have on a morning show. To me, that's such an amazing role and influence you can have on people. So to me, that's such like a fun, great power you can have, if that makes sense. So listening to that, and then in the afternoon driving back home, I love Big Rick Stewart on Live 105, and to actually become friends and working a coworker of his down the road. I love Big Rick Stewart. Even later on, my mom would listen to Rennell on 98.1 Kiss FM. So listen to Rennell in the morning. And then when Howard Stern got syndicated out here in San Francisco, he originally was in San Jose. San Francisco stations bought him up and brought him over. So I was able to start listening to him a little bit more. When my alarm goes off in the morning, that would be tuned into Howard Stern. I would listen to him. And I mean, just a variety of, like, my brother and I would listen, sports talk radio as well. So all the different, like, just stations, here in the Bay Area over the last couple decades, we just some of the personalities we fall in love with. So I mean, yeah, like Alex Bennett, Big Rick Stewart, Rennell, Howard Stern. I mean, there's so many of people. A lot of so Live 105. I used to listen to Live 105 a lot when I was younger, just because they played a lot of the artists that I love. Green Day, Nirvana, all the alternative and punk and grunge bands of the 90s, all the flashback stuff from the 80s they would play. So all those different personalities, the DJs, No Name, another one I became friends with and worked with them. All these personalities on that station, I felt like I became their friends. I connected with them. And that's so huge. So that's just I mean, there's so many different personalities. I mean, for me as an older person, I can refer to.
Absolutely, man. So it's what you've aspired to be a part of since you were a child.
Yeah. So funny story. Going back to my brother, when we were younger on road trips and stuff. So my brother, my brother Tommy. He's a goofy guy, and he would always like do these funny, goofy voices and stuff. And my mom and dad thought, oh, like, oh, he have a great radio voice. He should work in radio. And I guess partly kind of like sibling rivalry, but also I was like, what about me? I thought I could be cool in radio. I want to do radio stuff. Um, I didn't like, I'm not no best like impersonator or had these goofy voices, but I always wanted to be in radio. And so it was when I was in high school, we had a thing called Current Life, which is like an updated version of like sex ed. It was like an expanded, we only took it for like or for one semester. And, and it was like, what we had a project was research and write about a possible career you want to get into after high school. So I was like, all right, let me use this opportunity to research what it is to be in radio. And, there was not a lot of info out there yet. So this was like back in 2000, I want to say. So it was tough to kind of research at that time, find a lot of info. But I did my best. And that was kind of like the beginning of like, okay, this is my way of kind of figuring out how to, eventually get into that business. Because I'm now that's much more sooner from graduating from high school, college. Like that is possibly in my career path in the distant future. So it was a great way to kind of get the ball rolling, figuring out how to get into radio. So it was like those high school years, like junior year, I think it was.
Absolutely. And then so you went to Berkeley, right? For college?
Yeah. So I didn't get into Cal out of my senior year. Instead, I got into this program where it pretty much means do your time at the JC level, and if you meet all the requirements, you reapply and you can transfer over as a junior college transfer. So I did I went to Laney College. in Oakland. I played basketball for Merritt College in Oakland. And in 2 years, I had all the grades, got all the units covered, and met all the requirements. I reapplied to Cal, got in. So I went in as a junior. So that was fall semester of 2004 when I started at Cal. So when I started there, I had to take like one more course, and then I was able to apply to be a mass communications major.
Awesome, awesome. My same path.
Yeah,
I,
yeah,
I'm I'm
man.
I'm doing it on the lower scale, but still nonetheless. So when did you first like get into a radio station, get to play with the board? When did that come about?
Okay, so kind of two-parter here. So summer of 2004, when I was getting ready to transfer to Cal, I was like, you know what, I should kind of start getting like an internship, like get my foot in the door. So what happened was in junior college, I took public speaking at Merritt College, and similar one of the homework assignments or speaking assignments was look up a career that you want to get into and speak about it. And so I was like, all right, let me look into radio again. And I kind of probably had some notes left over from my high school project, but by that point I was able to look up more stuff. And by that point, email was more of a regular thing. So I was able to go to different radio stations' websites, find the DJ's email, and start emailing them. And a handful of them actually got back to me. And it's kind of funny. Some of them that responded to me, I've actually became friends with and get to know and meet them over time. And some of them I was like, I don't know if you remember, like a couple of years ago, I was the guy that sent you that email. Well, that's me now. I'm your coworker, but that's a whole nother story. But um, of all the emails that I got from them, all of them did say pretty much the same thing. You got to get your foot in the door, do an internship. I'm like, okay. So when I had that like off summer, getting ready to transfer to Cal, I was like, let me try to get an internship. And I was like, okay, let me try to get an internship at the station that I loved growing up as a kid, Live 105. I was so nervous. I never had a job interview before. I didn't know what to expect. I thought I was good, nice looking clothes. So I went in there and I sat in the office or their lobby, and I'm sitting there and I see like different people come in and out, and I hear their voice. And I was like, oh, I think that's so and so. I just recognized based on their voice. And then I had my interview, and I thought I did okay. But the problem was at that time, Live 105 was going through like a little bit of a format change. They were kind of playing less like Nirvana and Soundgarden and more of like the Strokes and some of these other more indie rock bands. And so I wasn't listening as much at the time. Plus, I mean, I was just busy with college life and stuff. But nonetheless, a lot of these bands that they were asking me about, I just didn't know too much about because I was already, I didn't keep track of all these bands. So when they were kind of testing my knowledge, they even had me do like a music test, like some paper music test, answering questions. And I didn't know all these different bands. Like the one question I think I got right was like something about Dave Grohl. It's like, of course I know Dave Grohl, Foo Fighters, Nirvana, all that. Um, anyway, I thought I did okay because I really try to express how much I have a passion for it. Anyway, a couple weeks later, the guy who interviewed me sent me an email. Says, "Oh, sorry, position's been filled. Thank you for your time, though." I never forgot that guy's name. I always remember the name, and I was upset, bitter because I felt defeated because like my radio station that I loved listening to growing up didn't want me. I felt rejected, and I was like so bummed. And so that summer, I went up getting a job at FedEx just to make some side money. Help pay for books and stuff for Cal. And I was like, okay, what's my backup plan? And then sure enough, I remember someone else said, get started in college radio. So I was like, all right, well, I know Cal has a college radio station. Let me look into that. And sure enough, Cal does 90.7 KALX, CalX. And I went over there and asked how to get involved, and you start volunteering, and there's different departments there. I was like, sure, I'm about to be a student this coming semester. So I started volunteering there and just learned the ropes there. And then one department I started out in was the news department. And that was great because it was the fastest way to get on the air. So I would come in the afternoon, type up a bunch of news stories, and read these news stories on the air. So I'm reading like news reports. I gotta see if I have somewhere here some old tapes of me doing news reports back in like 2004. But I was trying to be like my best I don't know, like Tom Brokaw or something, like talking all serious. But I would find like goofy stories and talk about that. But after volunteering for overtime, I got to start doing DJing. They start you in the middle of the night, like at 3:30 to 6 a.m. and so forth. That was a fun experience because, we were in the middle of the night and my brother would come in and we would just play whatever we want. And it was great. Got a death threat once. Someone called in and just didn't like the music I was playing, and it was like, "I'm gonna kill you," and I was like, "Yeah, whatever," or something. And Tommy and I, we were walking to our car, and I was scared. Like we were like staying next to each other and like making sure like if someone would jump out of the bushes and try to attack us. So that was an interesting experience. But that's where I learned how to play with Pro Tools, basic just audio production stuff. Watching other people interview bands. So college radio was just such a great way to build my foundation and really confirm my love for radio. Then jumping ahead, summer of 2005, that's where I was like, I still need to get an internship because I'm about to go into my senior year of college. And I was like, at the time, 1077 The Bone was coming up as just a really fun rock station that's been around for a few years at that point. So I was like, let me apply there because they're playing all the rock songs that my family loved, the classic rock stuff that our aunt used to play for us and everything. So I was like, let's go there. So I applied. And the other thing, too, when I applied to Live 105, I think my resume just didn't have a lot on it because I didn't have a lot of experience. Jump ahead a year later when I applied to The Bone, my resume was a lot fuller just because I had so much of the college radio experience listed off there. And so then I went through the interview process. They could tell I was really passionate, and I got hired to start out as a promotions intern. So that was, fall 2005.
So you got over.
Absolutely. I won them over. I proved it. I put the work in, had the resume, and just my interview, I was just like, I do this, and this at the radio station. I would love to learn how to do it here at a mainstream rock station. So, yeah, it was the rest was history, as they would say.
Absolutely, man. I mean, college radio, it's a great tool and foundation for people to really just get to learn the business. And then I mean, people I've gone to Chabot with who have been on KCRH 89.9 FM,
Mm-hmm.
the East Bay's best variety.
Absolutely.
They told me I have to say that every time I mention the name of the station. I mean, they've gone on to work for like KBLX and
Mm-hmm.
all these other great stations
Yep.
here in the Bay Area. So anybody that wants to be in radio, hey, get involved with a college radio station. And even if your college doesn't have a radio station, take a class or two at like Chabot or something and get involved. You know what I mean? It's
Mm-hmm.
it's fantastic.
Mm-hmm.
So you get the internship at 1077 The Bone, but the name Baby Huey, where
Mm-hmm.
does this come from? I don't think I've ever heard this story.
So I'll give you the true story. There's other people out there who will tell it differently, and here is the actual story of Baby Huey. So, growing up, my youngest aunt, my dad's youngest sister, my aunt Katie, that was just a nickname she had for me growing up, just because I used to walk around. I was always big for my age. I used to walk around bull-legged, which I was like walk like this as a little kid, and yeah, listen, I love milk. I love milk growing up, drinking it. It's always I love as a little baby having milk in my bottle and just drinking as much as I can. Like, I mean, that's why I got strong bones and never had a broken arm or anything, but knock on wood. But, so our aunt used to watch Tommy and I just growing up. And so it was her responsibility to, refuel me with my milk. And eventually, like, I would drink it, and then like I would jump out of the bed or the crib and stick my arm out the bedroom door, and that was her cue to like get up, refill, give back to me. Eventually, I was big enough to refill it myself. But so all these characteristics just reminded her of the old cartoon Baby Huey, and so that was her personal nickname to me. No one else knew it. I mean, it was just a family thing. Uh, Jump ahead to that first, let's say, I want to say like September of 2005. So like a month into like me starting at the Bone in the internship, Lamont Antonelli had a golf tournament. I was working it, and I was looking forward to it. I mean, it was going to be a bunch of listeners. It's going to be like Hooter girls. It was going to be like booze all over the place. Like, it was going to be a big party. I was looking forward to working this event. And we get there, and I see like the Hooter girls there, and they were the ones serving like the beer. I was like, I want to work that hole and help them out, be their assistant. No, my boss at the time did not assign me that hole. She assigned me the responsibility of being the witness for the hole-in-one hole, which was on the opposite end, the farthest end of the golf course, in the middle of the sun, no shade, and I had to literally sit there and just keep, watch everyone tee off and make sure if they got a hole in one or not. And if they did, they win a car. So that's why they need an actual witness there. So I'm sitting there, I'm in the sun, I'm getting sunburned, I'm frustrated. Another coworker had the job working with the Hooter girls. I was like, I want to work that hole. Finally, like a couple hours later, they're like, okay, we're gonna rotate people. My boss says, okay, you can work that hole now. I'm like, yeah, I sprinted over there. Sure enough, Hooter girls are gone, beer is all gone. I just had to clean everything up. I'm like, great. So I'm cleaning everything up. I'm like, God, damn it, son of a, pissed off. This guy comes up to me and he's like, hey, you work at the Bone? And I was like, yeah. And he's like, what's it like there? I'm like, oh, it's cool. And he's just like asking me all these random questions. And then he's like, Lamont Antonelli? I'm like, yeah. And they're like, hey, is it true? They're like a couple of assholes. And I was like, what? Like, is it true? Like, they're pricks, right? They're like dicks and stuff. And I was like, what are you talking about? And he's like, no, Darren, you can tell me. I heard they're like, really like pricks to work with and stuff. I'm like, I mean, I'm still fairly new to the job. I didn't know them that well, but I'm like, I'm not going to talk crap about a coworker, especially to a listener. And I was like, no, they're cool with me. Lamont, very outgoing, outspoken. Tanel's a little more quiet off the air. But they're cool with me. And he kept egging me on and like poking me. And I was like, what? Why are you asking me all these questions? I mean, in my head, I'm thinking that. He's like, oh, I'm just messing with you. I'm Lamont's brother-in-law. I'm like, oh, I was like, oh my God. He was trying to get me to talk crap about them. And then sure enough, Lamont comes walking up laughing. He's like, I heard my brother-in-law was giving you a hard time. He's like, good. I know you won't talk ass behind my back. So I'm like, okay, cool. And I started talking to him. I was like, yeah, I would love to help out any way I can. And he's like, asked me that dreaded question. Are you willing to do anything to get on the air? I'm young and I'm oops, hold on one sec. So I'm I'm young and I really want, to succeed in this job. And I'm like, yes, like without even hesitation, when he asked me, are you willing to do anything? I was like, yes. And he's like, great, come in, next week and help out. And he's like, we need to give you a nickname. Do you have any nicknames? I said, we just can't call you Danny. And I was like, well, in high school, I had the name Lurch because I was the tallest white guy on the basketball team. He's like, nah, we can't call you Lurch. I mean, something else. And I said, my aunt used to call me Baby Huey when I was a little kid. And he's like, perfect. Like Howard Stern has Baba Booey. We'll have Baby Huey. Easy to remember, rolls off the tongue. I'm like, okay. I mean, at that point, I was like, 21. I was like, okay, cool, whatever. And then he's like, oh, Baby Huey, we should, put you in a diaper like Cupid and do something like that, like a stunt like that. I'm like, okay, whatever. And so at that point on, I used to, my office days was Monday. And the rule of thumb was you don't go in the studio until after 10 a.m. You don't want to bug the morning show to grab like the prize sheets and stuff. I used to go up there like 9:45 and say hi to them, talk to them for a bit, just get to know them, start talking to the other DJs there and just get known, get recognized. And then, so anyway, they started bringing me on the air to help out with various things and say, hey, Baby Huey's in here now. So that's how kind of the name kind of snowballed from there.
There you go, ladies and gentlemen. No folklore. It's a shoot, brother.
Yeah.
I love it, man. I love it. So, I mean, obviously, this is a wrestling podcast. We're both huge wrestling fans. That's how we got to be really good friends.
Mm-hmm.
When did you start being able to get wrestling involved with the Bone?
Wow. Okay. So in 2005, I remember one day, I heard Batista was coming in studio to promote WWE coming to town. And I was like, oh, I want to go up there and meet him. And it was my office day. So I'm all dressed up like office clothes or whatever. But I went up there, got to meet him. So it was my first time meeting a WWE superstar in person at the radio station. And then sure enough, I was like, they told me, oh yeah, Rey Mysterio was here like last year. I saw like photos of him from like the year before in the studio. I'm like, oh, I would love to meet Rey Mysterio. But I got to meet, yeah, Batista, which was 2005. So, he was doing his thing on SmackDown probably at that point.
Was he the world champion?
I'm not sure. I don't think he had the title with him, because usually the superstars, if they're a champion of some sort, they bring those titles with them on their promotion tours. My photo with him, there was no title, but you saw like my photo with The Miz. He had the WWE Championship with him, so that was cool. So from that point on, like when I started my role with the morning show, started getting bigger, and I was able to become like a producer for them. Anytime WWE came to town, it was always great. Like they would always give away tickets on our radio station. They would ask to help out and promote any way we can, do interviews. And early on, I was like, yeah, let's do this interview. And like the salespeople would be like, oh, so-and-so is available. It's like, I would check with the guys and they'll be like, I don't know who that is. But I said, okay, I'll give you questions. I'll help prep you as best as I can. I mean, I remember back in the day, like we had John Cena call in, CM Punk. I mean, this is back in, I'm trying to think, between like, I'm off the top of my head, like between 05 and 010, like those next set of handful of years. To keep in mind, they're still kind of all fairly young in their WWE run. So, I mean, that's why it was like a little more easier to get like a John Cena on the phone for a phone interview. So, it was cool to be able to talk to them like briefly on the phone or something and put them on the air. So we always had that relationship, our radio station, with WWE. Jump ahead, God, I want to say 6 years ago, maybe. That's roughly, I'm thinking off the top of my head. At that point, I was like, I want to do more with my career. I want to be able to do more stuff on my own. Luckily, I was able to kind of, start DJing, get my own shifts on the radio station. But I was like, I want to do more. I want to help create more content for the radio station. And so there were times that, my coworkers didn't want to do interviews with wrestlers. They didn't know enough about them to care about. So eventually I was like, can I do the interviews? And they're like, sure. And so when like the next available opportunity for an interview, I was like, can I do it? Yeah. And they're like, sure. And I started doing these phone interviews with the various WWE superstars. And that's how I got to meet them or talk to them. And then the big thing that really helped was when WrestleMania came to the Bay Area back in 2015. So that summer 2014, they started doing the press to let people know, hey, tickets are going to go on sale like end of this year for WrestleMania next year, all this stuff. And so WWE, they're like a traveling circus. So they need help going from market to market, making contacts with all the various media outlets. So luckily, this one company here in the Bay Area that does like the movie screens and stuff, WWE outsourced them to help them set up interviews and stuff. And luckily I knew some of those people. And so they asked me to come out and like interview Big E and Ric Flair in person at the SAP Center backstage. So I did that. I think it was like the summer of 2014. And so I got to meet them in person. So it was great to like build a connection in person with the WWE PR staff. Jump ahead to when WrestleMania happened, I was able to do Radio Row, and since all the superstars were in town, they would come in studio, so I got to meet not only the PR people, but all the superstars, make connections. So just start building that relationship and friendship with the WWE on a more personal level. And then from that point on, I've been able to get more interviews, be on their email list, them contact me for if someone's available for an interview. So it's just, like I said, another snowball effect of, so when WrestleMania came to the Bay Area, that was a really big opportunity for me while I was in this period of trying to be more independent and do more interviews on my own. It was a great opportunity because I love wrestling. I love interviewing people. And I was finally, it's like, F it, I'm going to have more confidence in myself and start doing more of this stuff on my own and start racking up all these interviews. So that was kind of the beginning of it. So thank you, WrestleMania. Hope they come back again.
Hopefully, Jesus, we needed. What was the first wrestling interview that you did?
Well, okay, first one. I think on my own was Ric Flair and Big E. So I'm
Okay.
like, oh god,
I
like we're
mean,
starting with the goat, Ric
the
Flair.
greatest ever.
I mean, my brother was with me. He was filming it on our iPhones, and I'm like, I was nervous, but luckily afterwards, a couple people came up to me who were also doing interviews. Said, "Dude, your interview was great. Like, you know what you were talking about." I was like, "Yeah, yeah." To be honest, like the audio, it's been out there for a long time. I do have the video, and as you know, a little behind the scenes, I got the new computer here at home, so I was thinking about maybe start releasing old video interviews that have never seen the light of day, and one of them is that Ric Flair interview. But I did phoners before. I remember, so let's see, Seth Rollins, Baron Corbin. I went to the Aftershock Festival years ago and was able to interview a lot of the NXT stars at the time. So, Finn Balor, let's see, Baron Corbin. Who else was up there at the time? Samoa Joe was there, but I didn't get to talk to him. Enzo Amore and Big Cass. So, but yeah, I remember I started doing like more phoners. So even Alexa Bliss, yeah, Seth Rollins, Baron Corbin a couple times, Bobby Roode. So I mean, think about in the last like 5 years, I've been able to kind of do more and more of those interviews, phone interviews with WWE.
Absolutely, man. But I mean, you took it a step further. You and our good buddy Bimbo Jimbo,
Yeah.
you guys created In The Kliq, and I
Hmm.
mean the concept behind it. We all know Jimbo. And I were Sean Marks,
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
and it was the whole In Your House logo, so it was just like a retro feel, and
Hmm.
it was a big hit right off the bat, man. I mean, it made it into my weekly rotation of
Thank you.
podcasts, and it was great, dude. So I mean, what was that whole process like? Because I know you've done podcasts before. I know you did the second shift podcast with the
Chasta.
Shasta. Yeah, I love that. I
Yeah.
missed that.
Yeah, yeah. Yeah, yeah. Okay, so going back to me wanting to do more content on my own and do more stuff, part of that was like I want to do more podcasting. And so I was like, I want to do a podcast maybe from the radio station. And so I a couple of my coworkers at the time, guy named Patrick, who was he was my old intern, and he became Steven Seaweed, our old midday personality as producer. Patrick, and then Joe Hawk, he was also one of our interns. So the three of us were all buds, and we're like, let's do a podcast together. I was like, sure. And this is, I think, like I said, 2014. And so we asked our program director at the time. He's like, yeah, sure, go ahead. And we're like, what should we call it? And they're like, call it The Other Guys, because you literally are the other guys outside of like the main jocks on the station. I'm like, okay, cool. Hopefully people don't get confused with the Will Ferrell, Mark Wahlberg movie, but yeah, sure we do. So we called The Other Guys podcast, and literally like once a week for like a half an hour, we would just talk about whatever's on our mind. It was so much fun because literally we'd be in a production studio having like these fun conversations. Put them on the Bone website, and it was cool. Like I very much treated it like Howard Stern has like the wrap up show with Gary Delabate, his producer, and various characters from the show. That's how I kind of treat it, like a post show thing. So we were doing that, and it was really fun. Patrick eventually left. He got a new job. Joe, his hours were getting different. So our first guest ever on that podcast was Jimbo, and Jimbo became a friend of mine at the radio station. He was working at KNBR, and I remember the day I was walking out of the studio and I was going to go to the restroom, and Jimbo was coming into work. He was working like the afternoon shift, and I had a Captain America shirt on. And Jimbo, who's a big Marvel comic book fan, and Captain America is his all-time favorite. He's like, "Hey, nice shirt." I'm like, "Thanks." And I walked past him. I went to the restroom. He went to work, so we just passed each other. And that point on, like, I found out that he was hosting a podcast called The Best Damn Nerd Show. I checked it out. I was like, "Oh, it's really good stuff." And then I started talking to him at work, and if I was there late and he was there, we would start talking about like comic book stuff. And then sure enough, he was like a wrestling fan, so we were talking about wrestling stuff. I was like, "Hey, you should come on our podcast and just talk about this stuff." And so he did, and it was it was a lot of fun, and I felt like him and I just had great chemistry together. And I was like, we should kind of do this more often, like you and I, like if our schedules allow it. And so I asked him like, hey, you should be part of this podcast. So we added him and became four of us, four other guys. Like, and then St. Patrick left. Joe's hours, if he can make it, we try to record with the three of us. Chasta, my coworker Chasta, was a guest, and so we would talk to her. And I just really felt like myself, Jimbo, Chasta had this great chemistry together. And so we kept doing it as the three of us. And when our schedules couldn't fit, because, Chasta and I are in the morning, but Jimbo was in the afternoons. So if he was able to come in early and record. So we started doing that stuff together. And then it kind of, when Jimbo wasn't able to come in as much, like this is getting super technical, but anyway, the other guys, we renamed it as the second shift, just because Chas and I were trying to do another podcast together, but it was like, why are we doing two podcasts? We should just combined it. And I like the name Second Shift better than the other guys because, guys, she's a girl, like, doesn't really kind of make sense. So I was like, I like the second shift because it really was, we did it like post show after the morning show. So it really was like our second shift. So the three of us were doing that together. And then Jimbo and I, we had fun doing that. And we were always talking about, doing like a wrestling podcast. And I was like, we should do that. Like, I told him, like, listen, you see, I get all these interview opportunities through 1077 The Bone with WWE. They like us. And so if I'm able to do an interview with a wrestler, you should come in and do it with me. And so that's how that kind of started. Like before In The Kliq, we would just do interviews only. So if I had an interview request sent to me, I would tell Jimbo, hey, it's at this time. If you're available, come in. So he would come in and start doing it with me. It was just so much fun. And it was like, well, let's, if we don't have an interview, let's still talk wrestling. Let's talk about Raw, SmackDown, whatever. And so we were thinking about the longest time, how we're going to do this. And finally, we decided let's come up with a name, came up with In The Kliq. I mean, as you said, he's a big Shawn Michaels mark. For me personally, I wanted something Stone Cold related, like In The Stunner or something like that.
You guys should have called it what?
So, but no, so we started doing the podcast together. It was a little over 2 years ago, SummerSlam. SummerSlam is like our anniversary of when it started. SummerSlam 2018 is when it officially started. So every week we record, the podcast together and then do interviews when we can. And just, over time, it just, I love talking wrestling. And that's really when it was like, that time period was like, you know what, this is what I want to do as far as I want to have a wrestling podcast, a regular, consistent wrestling podcast.
Absolutely, man. And I mean, you guys had a great rapport together, and it's very rare that you can find somebody where you click with like that, I mean, you guys have gone to Manias together. You've interviewed like Eva Marie, Stardust. Stardust gave Jimbo his name,
Yeah.
Renee Young, Bray Wyatt. I mean, Paul Heyman. You guys have you hosted the movie screening for John Morrison.
Or Johnny Mundo at the time.
Absolutely. And of course you've had our celebrity best friend Le Champion Chris Jericho in studio.
Absolutely.
So, I mean, you had a great run together,
Mm-hmm.
But I mean, no, keep going.
No, I was gonna say I like, to be honest, I do miss that. So when Jimbo over the summer had another job opportunity take place where he was able to, or that he wanted to pursue, and he took that job and he said, unfortunately, I can't do In The Kliq with you anymore. And I mean, I'm not gonna lie, it was very devastating. And just because I was like I feel like we were just hitting our stride and like we were getting some great momentum between our weekly episodes, the interviews, the coverage at wrestling events. I really was having so much fun. And as you said, it's tough to find someone that you have that chemistry with from a quality standpoint, but also just like a comfort level. And and then, he became one of my best friends, and, we're still friends and all, but it's just, I knew like at least once a week I was going to see him in person, hang out with him, talk with him. And, that's a little bit different now, obviously, because of the pandemic and stuff. But so being able to, so I do miss working with him and doing the podcast with him, because I really felt like, I've listened to other shows out there, and I really felt like between him and I and our broadcasting experience, I think that's really helped our show stand out versus some of the other shows out there from a quality standpoint, chemistry standpoint, the flow of the conversation, all that stuff, just the names we were getting. So it was very tough when he said he couldn't do it with me anymore. But he did say, he told me, he gave me all his blessings. Like, if you want to keep it going, go ahead. So I was like, I took a few days to think about it. I was like, yeah, I want to keep this going. I put a lot of time and effort into this. I want to keep this going. I want to take it to the next level. I want to do videos. I want to do merch, all these other things to really make this a podcast that stands out above the rest. So, I mean, thank you to you and my brother Tommy back there and our good brother Richard, between you guys helping me out to keep the show going. So I'm grateful for all you guys, for all your support on that part.
Absolutely, man. I actually I think it was like 2 days ago. I just re-listened to the New Hope episode where it was the first episode post Jimbo, and
Yeah.
honestly, bro, I don't think I've ever told you this, but I was like, I hope I don't fuck this up. Yeah,
Dude,
that's what I thought.
I was so nervous because one, I remember we were at the radio station, and that was like my first time kind of trying to control the conversation and like keep the flow and like figure out what to talk about and gain everyone on the same page and talk about these various things. So I was so nervous, and I kind of dread listening to, even though the podcast has already been existing at that point for over a year and a half. For me to re-listen to that, I had fun, but at the same time, I was just really self-conscious on my performance and just, from a lot of stuttering or I don't know. It'd be tough for me to listen to it right now.
I mean, it sounded okay. And
Okay, good. No, it's fine.
No.
I mean, like I said, I'm my biggest critic, so I mean, I'm sure it's totally fine. But it's just, for me, it just, if I was to listen to that, it would just take me back to that mindset in that moment of all the emotions I was feeling at that time. Because keep in mind, a couple of weeks ago, Jimbo just left, trying to get all of you guys together. It was a lot for me. I was just stressed out. That's more, if I was to listen to that right now, it just reminded me how stressed out I was in that time.
I mean, honestly, I really wanted to listen to it because Tommy was the star with his Terry Funk Forever.
Tommy was the star with his Forever.
Tommy, can you hit it for us? Can he do it?
What?
Tommy,
Terry Funk Forever. Forever.
yes.
Forever. Forever.
I love it, man.
There you go.
That needs to be a drop. That was great, dude. I mean, so what has the perception been like from the audience from this new era of the In The Kliq podcast?
I mean, from for multiple. Okay, I'm trying to think how I want to sum it up. Multiple people have told me they're happy to see me keep it going because they know how much I care about it, how much I have a passion for it. And it was really, it's a passion project. So, we're not making any money or anything off it. So I think a lot of people were happy to see that we're keeping it going. And as long as I'm happy, that's the big thing. That's what's most important. Some people have told me they love kind of like the new set of voices. So shout out to my boy Alonzo, one of my good friends, best friends since high school. He's praised. He's loved listening to you on the podcast. So shout out to Alonzo. It's different. I mean, luckily we've been able to pick up, I think, some new listeners now, just from our social media presence and what we've been able to do, and just when you share stuff, your audience from the Bulletcast was been able to tap into. And then with Richard, who runs Pro Wrestling 101 on Instagram. So a lot of the old school people and the various wrestling people that follow him and shares it. So for me, I've heard nothing but great things as far as, one, so happy to see the show keep going, and just a new set of voices, fresh voices, if that makes sense. So I've heard nothing but great things. I mean, of course, there's some people who say, oh, I miss Jimbo. And I miss him too, of course. I mean, I wish, he was still there, but at the same time, it's like, we got to keep this machine going. And I'm so proud of the body of work that we've all been doing post that. So, kudos to everyone involved.
Absolutely. I'm just glad nobody's like, who's this schmuck? I don't want to listen to this anymore.
I swear to God, I have not got one of those. No one has said anything bad about you.
Okay. I was about to say, oh, man, I'm about to get future endeavored. Oh, jeez.
No. from the no money we all make.
Absolutely. So, I mean, just kind of winding it down. Let's hit the rapid fire questions.
Oh boy.
What's your favorite interview you've ever done, wrestling and music?
Favorite interview that I've done wrestling? Um oh my god. I'm trying to think off the top of my head. Yeah, Drew McIntyre has always been awesome to talk to. Um Bray Wyatt in person was great because Jimbo and I, when we talked to him at Radio Row, we did bring up like, dude, like it's so great that you're in this position, taking on Undertaker at the time. Obviously, we all know about your dad, IRS, but also his grandpa, Blackjack Mulligan. Wait, is that right, Tommy?
Yes.
Blackjack Mulligan. Yes. So, and he, if you listen to that interview, you hear him like hitting the table with his fingers, making each point, and he says, "Thank you for knowing, like, thank you for knowing your wrestling history and like his lineage." So that was cool that Bray Wyatt kind of praised us in that interview. I mean, Chris Jericho, come on, man, in person, Chris Jericho is such a fun interview in person. Just be able to kind of, become friends with him. So that's always been so much fun in person, talking to Chris Jericho. Non-wrestling, from a comedian standpoint, Joe Coy. Joe Coy last year, he did an interview on our morning show with Lamont Antonelli, and then he stayed around after the show and did an extra interview with Chaston and I. And it was almost like a TED Talk. Like he was very talking about how he made it through the business and all the hard work. It was like a TED Talk in that sense. For me, to interview the guys in Metallica, Kirk Hammett from Metallica a couple years ago at Outside Lands, so a band that I grew up loving, to be able to talk to them. I mean, I love Trivium. That's one of my favorite bands. And so to become friends with them and interview them. Mike Dirnt, my all-time favorite band's Green Day. Mike Dirnt called into the morning show a few years ago, and Lamont was joking, like, oh, he's your biggest fan. But Mike was kind of like defending me and said, yeah, he's awesome. We love him. And, so it was just kind of cool, come full circle and kind of get to know those guys a little bit, Green Day. So, but yeah, so definitely, Chris Jericho in person. God, I'm probably blanking on so many. I mean, Cody Rhodes has always been awesome. But yeah, Chris Jericho in person, Bray Wyatt for praising us. Kirk Hammett from Metallica, just as, for me personally as a Metallica fan, getting to know Green Day. I mean, God, there's so many. I mean, like, if we have more time, maybe a part two, just some of all the different artists and comedians to interview. Joe Coy, like I said, so many great comedians as well.
Absolutely. Well, you can come on Complex Conversations. We'll
Yeah.
just talk music.
Absolutely. Yeah, totally, man.
So you said Green Day, favorite band. What's your favorite Green Day song? Is it 21 Guns? You a basket case guy?
Welcome to Paradise
Welcome to Paradise.
from Dookie.
I'm a Time of Your Life guy. That's my jam.
Yeah, dude. I mean, that song is arguably their biggest hit ever. I mean, it was on the last episode of Seinfeld, so that was like one of the most watched episodes ever. So your song heard on one of the biggest episodes ever, awesome. But yeah, the Welcome to Paradise, that has always been my favorite when I first heard it in '94. Just Billy Joe Armstrong's chords progression, power chords at the beginning of the song always gets me amped up to this day.
Absolutely, man. Favorite tag team of all time?
Favorite tag team? I'll probably go with the Road Warriors.
Okay.
Just growing up, I mean, what a rush.
Hey, that was pretty good. That was on point.
So, dude, like as a kid, I mean, growing up as a little kid, I loved the Bushwhackers because they always come out and they would lick everyone's head. So as a little kid, that's where I appreciate like the entertainment value in wrestling. Little did I know that they were like, I only found this out a couple years ago. Our buddy Kenny told me that they were like hardcore wrestlers in Australia called the Sheep Herders, and they would do like these matches with chicken wires and like blood and stuff. And little I know, they kind of, when they came to WWF at the time, they went 180 with the full comedic route. But Road Warriors, I used to love the Steiner Brothers too. Steiner Brothers were awesome. Nasty Boys were funny because I always love when they put people's faces in their armpits. But yeah, no, Road Warriors, total badass with the face paint, the shoulder pads, the power moves in the ring. So yeah, no, Road Warriors, totally.
Love Bushwhackers. Bushwhacker Luke was the first wrestler I ever met.
Dude, awesome. I mean, like, oh god, there's so many great tag teams though.
Favorite match of all time?
Favorite match? I mean, growing up, Andre versus Hulk Hogan, WrestleMania 3, that had a big impact because just wrestling on that size of a stage, that many people in attendance. What, Tommy? How was it? 93,000 in
Supposedly.
yeah. In what was it? Detroit.
Pontiac.
Yeah, Pontiac.
Yeah, 93,127.
So that match as a kid really stood out. But then as I got older and kind of watched more, I mean, Rock, Austin, WrestleMania 17, just because, Stone Cold won. But I mean, also WrestleMania 19, because Stone Cold put over The Rock, and that was his last match. And just that moment where after Rock got the pin and he's getting up, but he's like talking and he's trying to, maintain kayfabe. But if you read his lips, he's like thanking Austin for doing the job, putting him over. It's his last match. And remember, Earl Hebner was trying to lean over and listen, and Rock pushes Earl Hebner, the ref, to get out of the way. Like, this is a private conversation of us in the ring. So, Rock, Austin, WrestleMania 19 was very special. But also Bret Hart. I mean, the matches Bret Hart and Stone Cold had. I mean, WrestleMania 13. I mean, anything Stone Cold. I mean, those matches always stood out to me. Just that's what made me such a big fan in the 90s.
All right. Favorite gimmick of all time. Now, are you? I'm a Razor Ramon guy. You a Goldust guy. You a Gilbert. Are you a Hurricane? What are you?
Oh, God. Favorite gimmick. I mean, is Undertaker a gimmick technically? Like,
It's the greatest gimmick ever.
I mean, like as a kid watching him, Survivor Series 1990. So, I mean, I didn't watch it live, but my cousin had a VHS tape of Survivor Series 90, and we would go over there and I would watch it. And so that was my first time seeing the Undertaker. I'm like, whoa, who is this guy? And I was a kid, like 9 years old, 10 years old, and be like, oh, excuse me, no, 90 was what? I'll be 7 years old. Take that back. Sorry. So I was like 7 years old watching. I was like, oh my God, who is this guy? It's scary. Like, I'm scared. So, I mean, Undertaker, like that was like the first wow. God, other gimmicks. Oh my God. It caught me off guard with that. Rick Martel, the model, Rick Martel, arrogance. He sprays the bottle of arrogance in everyone's face, that fragrance. Oh my God. Let me think. God, there's so many. Like I said, it's gonna come to me after we're done recording here.
You're a Giant Gonzalez fan, I can tell.
Dude, Giant Gonzalez. No, like, listen, I know he was crap in the ring, but as a kid, I loved that look. Like, I was like, whoa, he's like got real definition on his arms, and he's hairy. He's a monster. My perception. I got little kid eyes watching these characters.
You weren't a fan of the Repo Man?
Repo Man was funny. See, all these people you're listing, I watched it live back in the late 80s, early 90s. So Sergeant Slaughter was also very fun as well, with him. Let's see. Yeah, God, with Sergeant Slaughter. Man, who else?
Doink? I think Doink is a universal favorite. Matt Bourne's portrayal of Doink back in the early 90s.
Yeah. Doink. God, I mean, there's so many. I mean, that whole new generation before the Attitude Era, how many goofy gimmicks there were. The Goon, the hockey skater guy. I mean, there's so many, just that whole time period. I mean, Razor Ramon was cool just because he would, hey, yo, and throw I love his vignettes of, eating dinner at a restaurant and just being super badass. So,
I cleaned the table for you, man.
No, not. His promos are awesome.
No, you know who's an underrated one, though? Max Moon.
Conan?
Yeah, dude,
Yeah.
Max. Hey, he's a man of the future. He can shoot beams out of his wrist. He was Buzz Lightyear before Buzz Lightyear.
Exactly.
And then I already know the answer to this. I'm sure a lot of people do too, but favorite wrestler of all time.
Oh, Stone Cold. Steve Austin. Absolutely.
So whenever you enter a room, the glass breaks?
Absolutely. I mean, growing up as a little kid in the 80s, I was an Ultimate Warrior fan. Tommy, my brother, was a Hulk Hogan fan. And so, WrestleMania, 7? That was a big deal in our household. Hogan. Was it WrestleMania 7? Yeah.
Mania 6.
Or 6, sorry. Yeah. I mean, Hogan versus Ultimate Warrior. The ultimate, dream match and stuff. But as I got older and I was really able to kind of follow guys along and really gravitate towards them, yeah, it was Stone Cold Steve Austin, hands down.
All right, Huey, that's going to do it for the interview. Thank you so much, man.
Thank you.
I just want to say thank you for our friendship, and you're genuinely just a good person. Like, there aren't that many good people around anymore.
Yeah, I mean, luckily I do thank my parents for bestowing that upon me growing up. I mean, that's how I learned that from them. They taught me always be a good person, and growing up, I live my life by like Bill and Ted's Excellent Adventure. Be excellent to each other. Like that's it. Like be awesome to each other. Be nice. Be caring. And that's all it is. I mean, so yeah, just be nice. And so yeah, like I thank you to my parents, my brother, my family for keeping me humble like that and just down to earth, and that's how to treat people. Be always nice to everyone. And like, listen, real talk, the wrestling business, there's a lot of toxic people out there, a lot of toxic stuff out there. So, if I could play a part and change that and be, very positive and whatnot, I'm all for that. So, but like I said, I appreciate, everything you've done for me, helping there, being helpful for me, helping me out. And if I can pay it forward in any way I can to anyone else, you included, I'm all for that. So no, thank you to everyone for listening and to me ramble on about all wrestling stuff. I mean, I think we could totally do a part 2 of so many other questions we can get into and fun stuff and experiences. I've been very lucky in the last 15 plus years of working in radio, all the different people I've got to meet and work with, bands, wrestlers, comedians, entertainers. I mean, there's so many stories. I'm at that age now where I have all my own stories now. So, but thank you again.
Absolutely, man. You've built up quite a big presence here in the Bay Area. I remember one time you gave me and my buddy Vinny a ride home from a Raw,
Yeah.
and I told his mom, "Oh, we got a ride from my buddy Baby Huey," and she was like, "Wait, what?" Like she was marking out for you, dude.
Oh wow, man, it's no. I'm very lucky, I can't thank everyone at 107.7 The Bone, my coworkers, Lamont Antonelli, Chasta, Stephen Seaweed, all my past and present coworkers for help making this Baby Huey name what it is, and I'm forever grateful for that. And just I love the listeners who make what I am. So anyway, yeah, I can't thank everyone enough for all the support.
Absolutely. Huey, where can the people find you? Where can they find the ITK?
So you can follow me on Facebook at Baby Huey Official, Twitter and Instagram at Baby Huey 83. You already know this routine. So please subscribe to In The Kliq on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, Google Podcasts, YouTube. Follow us on Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram as well at In The Kliq, inthekliq@gmail.com, and 1077thebone.com. All my other stuff's there, Baby Huey related stuff and interviews and whatnot. So thank you.
Absolutely, and that's the bottom line because Huey said so.
Oh, hell yeah.
I love it. Thanks, bud.
Thank you.